There are two sorts of watch lovers. Those who do it for the gram, and those who just can't help but keep on falling in love with these creations. Let's make some time today for one of those people who give Swiss horology its true face, Mr. Klaus. And I will do so with a creation that would not be here without his determination or brilliance. It is the brand new IWC Big Pilot's Watch Perpetual calendar, which comes with a very handsome blue dial. And yes, this is a perpetual calendar. One of the most expensive, miraculous and prestigious complications a watch can offer. So, before we go any further, let me explain to you a little bit why this is so special and what Mr. Klaus has to do with it. The perpetual calendar shows the correct date for the next ages to come, because of its brilliant mechanical engineering. The date is shown on the dial in months, days and even years. This means it takes the leap years into account, as well as the different lengths of the months. The IWC calendar even shows 2 moon phases for both hemispheres. Now, how all of this works? It's pretty difficult, and others are much better at explaining it anyway. But what I do like to share with you is a little bit more of history and how this became one of the grandes complications. It is widely accepted that the first perpetual calendar in a pocket watch was made by Thomas Mudge in 1762. This was followed up about 2 decades later by Breguet with the Marie Antoinette. The first perpetual calendar in a wristwatch came from Patek Philippe in 1925, and later that decade Breguet made the Dollfus. Decades later, Mr. Klaus made history with the Da Vinci perpetual calendar in 1986. And he really does deserve his place in this very impressive bloodline of watchmaking greatness. And one very small personal addition to this is that Mr. Klaus was one of those people who made me fall in love with watches in the first place, because he was one of the first watch experts I interviewed about 15 years ago. He is humble, sharp, very intelligent and has a great sense of humor. Working for over 6 decades in the business, he has become the living example of what mechanical watchmaking is all about. He started at IWC in 1957 and was trained by the legendary IWC technical directors Albert Pelleton and Günter Blümlein. His first perpetual calendar was a pocket watch in 1975, and he was given more time and faith to work on an even more ambitious project. Listen to that, people, listen to that. Even at the height of an industry-wide crisis, this man was given about a decade to work on something they didn't even know would work. They didn't even know if they could sell it, but this is what they did. So listen to this, marketing managers, listen to this, CEOs. This is what leadership is all about. This is what passion is all about. Sorry for that. Back to Mr. Klaus. Because his invention was to add something not seen before in a perpetual calendar: ease of use. And the way he did this was he built a module on top of an existing movement, making it better to handle and better to make. And don't forget, this was done without computers or computer-aided design. This was one man, his persistence, his brains, some help from above, and his dogs to keep him from getting crazy. And his invention was so good, it is still the essence of the movement we're seeing today, the calibre 52615, which is made up of 386 components. Coming from the in-house calibre 52 family, it is based on the very powerful 7 days power reserve strongman from IWC. Now 7 days, that's a very serious power reserve, so they had to store it in 2 barrels. On top of this is the perpetual calendar module, which is the direct descendant of the piece of marvel Mr. Klaus came up with. Ever since its introduction, IWC has constantly upgraded this movement. You know, evolution in watchmaking is not about making watches tick faster. It is all about making them tick longer. And that is why some key parts now are made of high-tech ceramic, like the winding pawls, the rotor bearing and the automatic wheel. Now some people will immediately start complaining that perpetual calendar movements do not belong in pilots' watches. Now sure, that's true. But then again, you're not a real World War II fighter pilot now, are you? IWC likes to push boundaries, that's in their DNA. And it's also noteworthy that IWC also added its own winding system called Perpetual, and which is indeed called after the man who was Mr. Klaus's mentor. On the wrist, the watch feels absolutely like a luxurious car, which it practically is at this price of 30,000 euros. It's also quite big at 46mm or 55 lug to lug. And this world-class luxury shows in every detail. Although it's big and it's bold, it's still elegant and has so many beautiful details it's difficult not to get lost in. But what I love most about it is something a little bit more philosophical. I mean, if you start thinking about what's going on inside of this. 386 components working in harmony together. And when the century turns again in 2100, this watch will still be accurate. Even if it turns out you're not Highlander and you're not around anymore. Now, normally at this point in the video, I would ask you a useless question followed up by an even more useless machine called the Coca-Cola meter. But in this instance, I decided to just shut up for a minute and let the watch do the talking. There are two sorts of watch lovers. Those who do it for the gram, and those who just can't help but keep on falling in love with these creations. Whether it is the story of its creator, the technique or the design, good watches offer us a window to the best that mankind has to offer. And this perpetual calendar by IWC offers all of that. Period. Are you one of those people who just can't help but falling in love with beautiful watches just like me? Then please do like and definitely subscribe because there's much more coming up. See you next time!